Hi there, you guys. I don't know, but I think I told this testimony before, but I think I'm going to tell it again. Back in 2013, I was pregnant and I was with my first husband, and I was supposed to have a baby boy. But unfortunately, around that time, I was leaking amniotic fluid. But at the time, I didn't know that I was leaking amniotic fluid. I thought that, when you're pregnant, you just have, different, discharge, because I remember having discharge with my last. So I didn't think much of it until it, seemed consistent, like really consistent. So around that time, I decided to go to the hospital, and I would never really forget that day, because we went to, I think it was Reston, or so, it might have been Reston, and we went to Burlington. Is it Burlington? No, it's not Burlington. It's called it's like Burlington, but it's not. I forgot what it's called anyway. And we bought things for the baby. We bought covers. We already had the baby's bed. I was about 6 months pregnant. So when we got back from there, I was telling him that, I'm gonna go to the hospital because, I'm leaking this amniotic fluid. And he was like, okay, well, I drove myself there. Got there. They checked me and they were like, yeah, you're leaking amniotic fluid. And if I'm not mistaken, I think I was like 2-3 centimeters dilated already. I was 22 or 23 weeks pregnant, and they were telling me, asking me if I wanted the baby to be ventilated, and they were telling me the chances of the baby surviving were very slim. I believe that I was going with the option of, trying to fight the hardest to get my baby to survive. But they tried to put me up in the upright position to get me to hold the pregnancy at least until I got to like 34 weeks. At this time, my faith was not strong, and I wasn't praying, and I wasn't doing the things of God like I should be at all. So they sent me to another hospital that was better equipped for my situation. And when I got there, they did an ultrasound. They didn't try to give me any steroids or anything like that, which I would have thought that they would have, but no. I think later that night, early in that morning, I went into labor. And when I had my baby, he was stillborn. Like, he died within a couple of hours of me being there. So I felt that, now that I think about it, that the Lord just made it to where I didn't have to make that decision. Rather, I wanted to ventilate my baby and try to, see if, if he would survive. So yes, he was stillborn, and to come to find out that he had an infection also. And the infection is what, made him be unalived. So, so at this point, there was there was really nothing that could have been done. I was so hurt at that time, of course. And I remember saying in my mind, this is how I know God hears our prayers. Because I knew that after that I was going to church. I was going to the church. So I went to church. And in my mind, before I even got to the church, I was like, oh, I just need to hear that song. It's a new season. It's a new day. And they played that song. They played that song. So I said, that's how I know God hears us. Because they played that song. It gave me some peace. And I was able to talk about the situation. But no, I didn't. Still wasn't going to church like I was supposed to be. And this is God's mercy for us. This is God's grace. Because, some people would probably be, some people after situations like this would, some people would curse God. And some people would get closer to God. But I didn't hate God. But I didn't get closer. I made it through the situation. But also in a situation, and this is how God works, and this is how good He is. I had gotten to a point where I was having like a drink every day. It started off me drinking every day for a week, and then it almost went into 2 weeks. And my husband at the time said, stop. And I know to this day that was God speaking through him to save me from going through a path, going down a path that He hadn't ordained me to go down. So I talked about it. I grieved. And I deflect. And I push those feelings down. After that, we tried to have another baby. I got pregnant and had an early miscarriage. And I tried a couple more times after that. Didn't happen. But I'm going to go back because I forgot to mention something. Before I lost the baby, I had a dream. A week. I think like a week or two before I actually lost the baby. And in a dream, I was holding the baby and I was crying with my daughter beside me about my ex, who in my dream had passed away. And not realizing that it was actually the opposite way around. So I actually had a warning that my baby was going to pass away, but at the time, I wasn't spiritually aware. I wasn't spiritually awakened. I did not understand the things of, the spirit at all. Like, I didn't realize how real the spiritual world was. And, I know a lot of people don't believe in demons and witches and warlocks and, all that stuff connects. And the crazy part is about that is that, witches and warlocks and stuff, they know that God is real. They know that the enemy is real. But It's us who walk around with a veil over our eyes and don't believe that those things are real. I was one of them. Even though I used to watch so much supernatural stuff, I was still one of those people. So after that, trying to get pregnant and stuff, our relationship was not good. Our relationship wasn't good when we got married, and I knew that, and I kind of figured that it would end in divorce, which it did. And because it ended in divorce in my mind, I was like, I'm not letting this marriage affect me from getting married again, because I knew that this wedding last. I knew we shouldn't have got married. I knew we shouldn't have got married because the night before we got married, we were literally arguing. He was so controlling, and he didn't want me to go and do a bachelorette party with my sister and them, but it was fine for him to go and do it. And it was everything telling me that I shouldn't have got married, and I did it anyway. And y'all, women, marrying a man is not going to change him. If he is who he is before you met him, he's going to continue to be that. He has to want to change, and if he doesn't want to change, he's not going to change. Anyway, still not living the life that I should be living. Once we had separated and we went through our whole custody battle, I ended up meeting my now husband. Should it have been done like that? Nope, it shouldn't have been done like that, but that's what I did. Like I said, I knew God my whole entire life. I've been in church my whole entire life, but I never had a relationship with God. I didn't understand relationship at all. So I got with him, and I ended up getting pregnant while I was in the middle of my divorce. And in that, it was a fight from the beginning. I know that my daughter has some calling on her life, because from the very beginning of her conception, the enemy fought me in that pregnancy, y'all. I was bleeding almost the whole first trimester, but she stayed. And then I got the gestational diabetes. Then I ended up being on pelvis rest. Then I ended up being on bed rest. And then I went to the doctor because I told him I needed a progesterone shot, and found out in the middle there, what is called anatomy scan, that I was already 1.5 centimeter dilated, 1 centimeter dilated, or centimeter dilated. So I ended up having to go and get an emergency cerclage. So, I almost lost her the same way, but differently, because she didn't have an infection. But I was like 22 to 23 weeks at this time, and that part of the pregnancy always made me nervous because I already knew what had happened before. So had her, she was healthy, ended up getting a little bit of mama blues or postpartum depression right there at the very beginning. But it didn't last long. Then came my other baby girl. Had a cerclage, ever since that pregnancy, because they knew what was up. Yeah, so I had her, and I hoped that she would be a boy, but she was not a boy. But I loved her anyway, and I was happy, and I was like, you know what? I was thinking in my mind I would be done having kids. But then I was like, no, no, maybe not, because I really want a boy. And then I said to myself and to my husband, I was like, if I don't have another baby before I turn 36, then I'm not gonna try anymore. I'm gonna be done. I'm gonna be done. And so in 2022, I got pregnant and I had early miscarriage. It was like one of those miscarriages that you wouldn't know that you miscarried because it was super early, but I'm an early tester, a very early tester. And so I knew I was pregnant, but I lost it slowly. Like I was maybe 4 to 5 days late on my period. I had got a fake positive, and then it just slowly, went away. But, I was sad about that. But a couple of months later, I got pregnant. And I had this journal, and I wrote in it that, and I was so specific. Like, I was really specific. I wish I could find it, but I know that I wrote that. Lord, I really want a son. I really want a baby boy that came from my womb. And I want him to be healthy. Just, just like that. And so I got pregnant. And I wrote this about 2-3 years before. And I got pregnant with twin boys. My husband kept saying, we're going to have twins, we're going to have twins, we're going to have twins. And we actually did have twin boys. And God blessed me with 2. It was like double for my trouble. God is a God of abundance. Abundance. And even though I was not in him the way that I should be, he blessed me. And let me be clear, because I was in God at this time. I started developing my relationship with God back in 2021. And I think I wrote this around 2021. Well, shoot, I mean, I wrote that like a year before I actually got pregnant. But yeah, 2021 is when I, came into my real knowing of God and like having a relationship. But it wasn't where it is today. I've come so far, and I still know I got farther to go. But God looks after us even when we're not in him, even when we don't see it. But when you get in your relationship with God and you start looking back on your life, God will show you where he was with you even when you didn't think that he was. And God was with me a lot. A lot. Because I could have been in trouble in so many things. He saved me. And he continues to save me. He continues to be with me. And I told this testimony before, but I know no one had ever seen it. Don't have a lot of followers. But I feel like I had got more revelation since then, and so I really wanted to retell my testimony on this. But I hope you guys have a blessed and prosperous day, and I hope you will see God with your whole entire heart, because he hears us and he's with us, and he's never going to forsake us. Seek him while he can be found. Love y'all.